I had a question because I have like ups and downs, if you like,
Yeah,
and the I saw that you were describing things about when you'll fluctuate between going into that sense of expanding out and then
yeah,
coming back in again.
yeah,
And I can't fully identify with that, but what I can identify with is like a sense of being, a beingness,
yeah,
which is a kind of a feeling that comes and goes, and I can it's like a kind of fluffy feeling, if you like,
yeah,
and it can be there, and like it's there at the moment. I have it very ever so slightly now, kind of in the
yeah.
background
Like
as
love.
I'm talking to you, and that kind of comes and goes.
Yeah,
And like yesterday, I went out and had tea with a friend, and it was present while I was having this tea. It was quite a strong feeling, and then it was like today I had like a meeting in this morning. I had a meeting this morning. I go to a Quaker group, and after it was just slightly tricky because yesterday I'd felt so positive, and yet all of a sudden today it felt like life had become very difficult.
yeah.
Uh, and and then in the afternoon, I don't know what it was, but suddenly I seemed to go between this kind of feeling quite positive and very good about stuff, and everything's quite easy, and that's good, and I enjoy that. And then it kind of goes to these kind of more challenging situations, and then I find when I'm in the challenging situations, I tend to kind of revert my behavior to kind of avoidance behaviors
So
basically.
does something happen in the flow, or do your emotions just change? Is it something that triggers you? What is it that starts that?
I don't know. It doesn't seem to be anything specific. It just seems like yesterday was a nice day, and then today just seems for no reason at all. It's not like a drastic change. It just life becomes suddenly much more difficult.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered whether you had any advice about, you know, so obviously I'm thinking, life becomes more difficult, and then so I started, having a bit too much to eat. I had some biscuits,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, and doing things that kind of seem to, kind of make it even worse, if you like, rather than kind of I feel like I should be facing up to it, and
Yeah.
maybe there's some pain there which I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah. And are you aware of the emotional body, what's happening there? Like, is it a particular emotion that you have when life feels more difficult?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. Uh, Very possibly. I think possibly I don't, but possibly it's fear, possibly.
Yeah, so there's some sort of fear emotion that comes up.
Yeah, except I think it's on the periphery of my consciousness, so I'm not,
Yeah.
it just feels like suddenly I'm doing stuff to avoid how I'm feeling, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. It normally is. I mean, it can be the external. So something externally could trigger you, like something happens and then the body contracts. Or there can be an emotion and then you contract. And basically, what it is so your natural essence is the I am, is that love, is presence. And on the person, and then often we feel that, or we feel more connected with presence when we have good feelings, because when we have good feelings we're not trying to avoid the moment. When we have good feelings we're not like, okay, when's this going to be over? We're quite happy just to let everything play out as it plays out, and we're not seeking to get into time. We're not seeking to get something or get away from something. But when we have difficult feelings or painful feelings, then the seeking energy comes up strong. So a fear feeling comes up, and then there's a strong seeking energy that also comes up to get away from that fear feeling. And when that seeking energy comes up, then you lose contact with the presence, with the I am, with that alive, conscious presence that you are. It's not really that you lose contact with it, it's still there, but it gets covered by the seeking energy that's looking for relief in time, and your only relief is presence. So what all you have to do on the human level, if there's an activity to do, even though ultimately on the absolute level this is all just happening and there is no prescription, but on the human level it feels like you can do, and we recondition by getting information told to us about what to do, even though it's not a separate entity that's doing it. And what you have to do on the human level is just become aware of what you're feeling and what's happening inside of you. And so when the fear comes, it's giving that fear space rather than the automatic response of going into thought and trying to get away from it. But this stuff you're not conscious of normally. So it's like you become conscious that the fears come up. You notice that you're uncomfortable, and then you notice that there's fear there, and then you allow the fear to be there. So you give yourself 10 minutes out of what you're doing to sit down. If you're at work, maybe you can go to the bathroom and sit on the toilet and just allow the fear to come up and recognize the thought processes that are going on, that your boss is terrible, or that your work colleagues are terrible, or there's something really wrong, or notice all the heavy thoughts that come up with that, and just allow them to be there, but also have a recognition in your thoughts that none of those are true. They're true now as in you feel like that's reality, but they're not actually true. It's not actually true that if you get rid of your job or get away from your job or whatever the mind is telling you, that that will solve the problem. The problem always is, on the ultimate level, the identification with the person. And then there's relative problems, but you deal with the relative problems in life when you feel more in flow, when you feel connected to who you are. So obviously there's relative problems, like we have hurdles in the road, we have like in England we've got those sleeping policemen that we've got to be careful of when we're driving down a road. It's, you know, the bumps in the road. Are you still there? Yeah, he's still there. See, obviously, but you deal with those more when you're in balance. You deal with the actual problems in your life, because if you deal with them when you're out of balance, you're also going to be dealing with that one that's trying to avoid itself as well.
Yeah, no, I think, no, thank you very much for that. That's really helpful. I have a sense that, it's quite a strong feeling that I have. And I also have a sense that possibly it's, the same each time, it's the same feeling. And yet it's not quite it might be something that possibly I've been repressing for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not quite, it's because it's still very much buried. It's not, I don't know what it is. It's like not really a conscious thing. It's just like a just very much a feeling thing.
And the more that you put the intention that you want to understand what that is, so you just make the intention that you want to understand what that fear is, it will just begin to naturally happen. You will know what to do. Just like our body digests food, when the intention is put there that I want to understand this part of myself, it will begin to become present because the mind will begin to explore it. And and then just by listening to this subject and putting your attention on non-duality, you're becoming more aware of yourself or more aware of that unconscious stuff. And and as you also sit with it, when you sit with it for 10 minutes, like we know what to do. We know what we're trying to avoid. We just have to give it time to reveal itself.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. No, thank you. That's really helpful.
And just write down that intention, every month or so, write down the intentions of what aspects of yourself you want to get to know. Like make it clear so you keep remembering, oh yeah, I want to understand this fear. And then if you'll keep reminding that to yourself, if a video comes up on YouTube about fear or if someone starts talking about it, you'll naturally begin to want to tune into that.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. No, that's really helpful. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate it.
With pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for calling in and speaking and asking the question.
Not at all.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye.
Nice.